Welcome back to Driftwood Conversations. I'm Hillary Sloan. In the second part of my conversation with Gordon Clark, we enter the deeper waters of his life and work. We hear the story of Quintino, a 4-year-old boy Gordon photographed for over a decade, and of Ernie Lustick, a gang leader who agreed to be photographed in a pair of red shorts as a symbol of lost innocence. These aren't just stories, they're collaborations, long, tender acts of trust, risk, and revelation. We also learn about Gordon's own beginnings. He left home at 11, lived on the streets, and eventually found his way to photography, not through training, but through necessity, through survival, through intuition. What you'll hear is not just about making art. It's the making of a life that insists on bearing witness, on honoring stories that were never meant to be invisible. This is a conversation about identity, trauma, beauty, and the invisible threads that bind us across time, geography, and silence. Here's Gordon in his own words. Where will you go next? So more stories about your shooting, or?
Let's go into talking about the little boy, because that's important.
Okay.
And Turner. And then we'll just talk about the essence of the frequency some more, because I think there's some stuff.
I would really like to do that. And
your point of view for me is very important.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Because this is hitting home in a lot of ways. But,
yeah, good.
But I don't know how much we'll decide how much goes on here. This is about you. This is your story.
Yeah, but it's still, the whole thing with me as well, it's like we talked about stuff like with Jeff. Jeff is very about...
Jeff Frost.
Yeah, he's a great friend. He lived on my property. I love Jeff. But Jeff is very focused on everything that's affected him in a certain way, because that's how his work is. It's that way, and it's beautiful. Mine is more about the expansion just of being a human and what I've been through in my life and how that's collected itself, and how this is also for others to have a deeper understanding about their process.
You wanted to talk more about the child.
Quintino.
Go ahead. Tell me about them.
Okay, so Ernie Lustick he's the guy that wanted me to photograph him. So first of all, his assistant said, no, he would never do that. He's the main gang guy. He's not going to put a pair of red shorts on and be like a child. So I said, okay, well then I'm not really interested. Okay, so then I get a call from him. Hello, Gordon, it's Ernie. I said, hi, Ernie. Look here, my guy tells me you want to make pictures of me in Wuppertal, where my family's from, with the little red shorts like a child. I said, yes. He said, okay, now we can do that. So that was it. The door was open. Now I'm getting involved in another kind of darkness, okay? But is it dark or is it not? What is it? So his culture, he was, during apartheid, they never had the opportunity for school, for education. They had to make up their own stuff. They had to create their own thing. So now we've got this guy who has 27 children from 11 different women. And I'm saying to him, I want you to take me into the place where you grew up, the Cape Flats, specifically a place called Elsie's River in the Cape Flats, which are these cinder block apartment buildings, tiny, where they'd crammed all these families and dragged them out of District 6 and put them in there. Okay, so he took me and he drove me through. We're driving through and we stop, and there's this kid, and he's pushing this wheel, and he's 4 years old. He's got snot coming out of his nose. And I was like, hold on. Green blue eyes, and his name's Quintino. So that's when the idea kicked in. And this was all a mirror of how far I'd expanded myself into Leon and doing theatrical work there. So I was like, okay, the story's coming together on its own. It's just doing its own thing. He's like, okay, we're going to do this thing in Wuppertal with me as a child. Here's the child. So I would go into the Cape Flats. I did it for 13 years. I photographed Quintino from the age of 4 to the age of 14 or 15. And Ernie, I did that shoot. We made a little documentary about him as well. He then calls me up one day and he says, Gordon, there's another friend of mine. He's been in jail for 23 years. His name's Turner. He wants you to photograph him. I said, okay, so I'll meet Turner. Now, these guys have come out of prison, so they've got that energy, which is a very different energy. Because survival in prison, I mean, they would be known as, quote, criminals. So this is where my non-judgmental side of forming myself into going, and trust me, I'm still judgmental about certain things. I'm human, It's not all gone. I work on it every day. But this was the idea with Turner. And Turner had this beautiful story about the Khoi people, and he wanted to go back to District 6, which was now being demolished, and he wanted me to photograph him there naked, which I did. It's there, it's in the book, So that was another whole learning thing. Here's a man whose whole body's tattooed. He's got a tattoo in his hand that says, go to hell, and when you get there, tell the devil I'm coming. Okay.
What do you think these men wanted from those photographs? To be seen, to have a place?
I think everything. An identity was the first thing. And that's why the gangster guy, the main guy, Ernie, was like, well, I don't know if I want to be photographed as a child. But it was identity because it was going back to historically where the Solomon family, which was his family, were from. They all wanted an identity because they had been crushed after apartheid. They had no identity. And that's why the gang thing was a frequency that formed, was like boiling water, where it just got around. And they were like, okay, we're going to do this. It was a new human frequency that had formed in this Cape Flat world that produced close to 600,000 gang members.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So for me to go in and watch this circle, this sort of cyclical behavioral thing of a kid seeing a guy in the corner, he's dealing drugs, but he's got a gold chain around his neck and he's got a Kentucky Fried Chicken in his hand. I want that. And then here came the interesting part of this. Quintino, the little boy, I met with his father, and I thought, okay. I took some pictures of him, but the parents were there, and I started feeding the parents, and I started buying them groceries. I drove them into town one day from the Cape Flats, which was about a 12-mile drive. But you could see Table Mountain, where they originally were from where they lived in the Cape Flats. But he had never been into Cape Town before at the age of 8. So when he got in there, I said, there's Table Mountain. He said, when we're underneath it, he said, no, it's not. Table Mountain doesn't look like that. Their perspective was only that perspective that they had from their house, which was the Cape Flats. They had no idea. And we went in and I bought them like a burger, and he had like a headache afterwards. He couldn't understand why was this so different from where he lived.
That almost gets me speechless, which is
yeah. So it was phenomenal, and this was a sort of epiphany for me, because I was like, okay, so environments where people are, or where people create their narratives, whether it's positive or negative. It's like the other day I was in LA. There was a person in the living room talking about South Africa, and he was a famous person, and everyone was listening to him because he was famous. And he was pointing out, he was going, well, the guy, because there's all this political stuff going on about South Africa, the guy with the red beret is from the Congo, and he's not even South African, and all the violence and the break-ins in the houses and the home invasions are all gang-related, and Johannesburg is the biggest city in Cape Town. And I had to stop him. I said, first of all, you're telling all these people this stuff, but none of it's true. Julius Malema, the guy with the red beret, was from the African National Congress Youth League. He's South African, he's Zulu. He started this movement, called the EFF, so that is South Africa. And Johannesburg isn't in Cape Town, it's 1,200 miles away. And the gangs don't even have a car to break into your house. And in Johannesburg, where they have the homes that have 14-foot walls with fences around and electric fences around the top, those guys aren't driving to Johannesburg to break into your houses. So you've got all of that wrong from the narrative that you've picked up. He said, well, I've been to South Africa, you're just telling me, what do you know? So I said, well, hold on. So I went to my phone, I opened my phone, and I said, okay, let's look at this one, Behind Paradise. That was a crime-related documentary. So I played the beginning, and I stopped, I paused, I said, okay, what does it say on the top there? It says, a Gordon Clark film. I said, yeah, I made the film. I'm Gordon Clark. Oh! And then it set him in a different... But you can't make judgment because people gather, in their environments, they gather information. And they put that out there. And it's that negativity, or not negativity, where they've got it wrong, where that fuels people's perception of certain things on this planet. The same as the gang kid going into Cape Town and going, who are all these people? What's going on? But he could see it from his house, but he'd never been there, And when you give that distance and you give that kind of perception to even the way we look at the world today, it's the same thing.
That's fascinating. I had an experience in LA one day, and I don't know what caused it, but I was driving down West Hollywood, place I've been a million times, and it was very crowded. I couldn't move very far, and all of a sudden I couldn't figure out where I was. I was completely lost. And I felt like somebody took me out of my body above the car and looked down at a whole bigger map of where I was, and then I knew where to go.
Interesting.
And it was just a few seconds, and I drove on. But it was that moment that I realized how important perspective was. And it gave me a whole different view of the world.
Yes. And I think that's part of my work as well, is that my perspective is organic. It's not people will look at it, like the video that you saw that I sent you, And by the way, people can access that now without a password. We can just send that out.
Great, we'll do that.
Yeah. So even in that situation, people would say, well, why would you do this? Or why would you go there? Or why would you want to engage in this? Or why, all the big why questions. And the truth behind it is exactly what you said. It's identifying, now I know where I am. But where I am can be changing all the time, because you can go back. I mean, my memories of when I arrived in LA was like in 1980, I'd come out of apartheid in South Africa, which was hectic. But you didn't realize how hectic it was. You just were like, oh, okay, I'm in America now, it's cool. And I arrived on the beach in Venice Beach. That's where my first place, 1980. And there was this old woman on a skateboard. There were mixed race couples walking up and down the promenade there. And there was that guy with the turban playing the guitar on his roller skates. He is, right? Wonderful guy. And I got this migraine headache because I realized that I was in such a different environment. It was so entirely different that I felt like I wasn't alive for a minute. And then the next day when I woke up, I was like, oh my God, you'd carried all of that apartheid stuff as a child for so long, but it was normalized. And that's the thing, it's the normalization of things that prompt us to believe that we're safe in that environment.
When I was in Africa, when I was in Tanzania,
Yeah.
And I was there for 3 months, and I met up with a German friend, and we went to Zanzibar. And I loved living in the villages. But Zanzibar, we stayed at a really nice resort, and I was so uncomfortable for at least 3-4 days. It took me to... I didn't even know why. I was angry. It was like something was wrong.
Yes.
The abundance, the food, the beauty, the good chairs. I mean, there was nothing for 3 months.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everything's there.
Yes, of course, yes. Because you see, the thing is that a lot of those places in Africa, they survive on tourism.
Right.
And tourism is... their currency is not worth that much. So when the dollar came in, they provided these very luxurious campsites and places South Africa is full of game reserves that are private, that are highly expensive, very luxurious, because you're going to get the people with the money from Europe and America coming in, and they're spoiled already. So everything has to be at the tip of their finger, like, why isn't it? I want this, and I demand that. Now, where are the lions? I need to see the lions. I want to see elephants. I want, demand. But they don't realize that they're now in nature. It's not a zoo. You're not calling, we want the elephants. Well, the elephants may decide they're not coming anywhere near you today, or a lion, or any other animal. The Kruger National Park itself is, I don't know, it's like half the size of California. It's massive, And those animals, no one comes in and throws a chicken over the fence, They eat each other. It's nature. And that's the other beauty about my life, is that I saw that as a child. I felt that as a child, nature. There is no good and bad in that, Hyenas are born underground, and the weak one gets eaten. That's nature, And I think that's part of why I'm also open and able to connect to all these different things. I don't see them as positive or negative. I see them as all. And there's levels of them that participate in the creation of whatever I do. Some are severely in the negative tone, others more positive. But when the work is viewed, like in my film, I start off by saying, well, people sometimes view it as being hard to look at, confronting. But yes, that's it. It's the same as nature. It's confronting, And if you look past it and you look into it, you can see a side of yourself. And that's the art that I created.
How did you grow up? Where and what was your schooling?
Okay, so I grew up, my parents separated when I was very young. I ran away from home when I was 11. I lived on the streets for about 4 months. And then I was taken into a reform school, and I was dyslexic. I battled. And that reform school during apartheid was heavily on the side of not being Afrikaans, right? My mother was an orphan. So she never knew who she was. So there was an identity crisis already there, My father had come out of World War II, and he was an alcoholic. When I ran away from home, I then got arrested after 4 months. I ran from Johannesburg to Durban, which is about 300 miles away. And I lived next to the snake park, and I'd go down the road and I'd buy marijuana for 5 cents a stick, sell it to the hippies on the beach for 20 cents a stick, take that money and go back to where the market was and get a bunny chow, which was half a loaf of bread. And inside you'd scoop out the bread, and they put curry. So you could have vegetarian for 9 cents, and 11 cents was mutton. Okay, so I lived like that. And then next to the snake park, there was a hedge. No one would go in there, they were too scared of snakes. And it was right on the beach. So I'd run into the ocean, swim in the ocean. There was a little shower, wash my kit, dry it out. And I was tiny. People would say, well, where are your parents? And I'd go, I'm at jockey school. I'm studying to be a jockey. And I'd lie. I got away with it. Then I got caught. Okay. So then they put me into this hardcore reform school, and I was in there for 2 years. So I came out when I was 14. I had to go to a regular school, which was also part of the reform school. So I was on probation for a year. And then I finished. That was it. I was done. Then I got a job sweeping hair in a beauty shop. And then I went down to Cape Town, and I met this photographer, Johan, and he taught me how to start making pictures. And that's how it happened. And things just happened. I just figured out stuff. And the one guy that worked in the beauty shop with me, I still talk to him, he lives in Australia. He's like, Gordon, I don't know where you acquired your intelligence from. Well, I read a lot. And to get to America, the other guy with the beauty shop business, he sponsored me to come to America. And immediately, so I was then taking photographs of his beauty, of hairstyles and things like that, which got me my green card, right? And then I took all that money, and I took it about $70,000, and I made a spec reel, and I started making music videos and commercials, and then all of a sudden I was in. And then I started photographing. I kept the photography was always like my anchor, and the craft of it. Back to South Africa, while I was still living in America, and I made a book called Transitions Southern Africa. And it was the tribal people transitioning into the urban world and what it was like. So that book was actually, Oprah Winfrey wrote the foreword. I never met her, but she wrote the foreword, and there was a whole bunch of stuff that went wrong with all of that, but it was done. So I did that. The magic was just, I self-taught. you know.
Let me go back and clarify a few things. You said your mom was mixed race, and
Yes.
your father was from where?
Well, his background, my grandfather from his side was Scottish. So there was that. That's why I have this appearance, you know. But
So Gordon is very, very light. You would not know he was mixed race.
No, not at all. Absolutely not. But my mother was the green eyes, she looked exactly like little Quintino. When I saw little Quintino in the gang world that I photographed with the green eyes, that I followed for those years, he looked like my mother.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And maybe that was a trigger. I don't know. I didn't try and connect it. I just let it be, you know.
So you had mentioned identity as a big thing in your family and the people you were photographing. Yes. How do you feel about it now?
I feel whole as a person, you know. I don't have any problem with my identity. Whatever I am is what I am. I don't even see it anymore. It's just there, you know.
How do you see your identity? As a photographer or more? Is it
more complex? I say myself as an artist.
As an artist.
And I used photography and filmmaking as my tools and a vehicle to communicate my journey.
Did you ever try any other art forms?
I painted. I did a bit of illustration, but it was the photography and the filmmaking was the thing, because it was these stories and the people and the interaction, the direct interaction. I don't feel the need, because my life has been my life, you know. It is my life, and I'm very, very appreciative that I'm living in my life. It doesn't matter about the other. I mean, sometimes people go, well, you know, for you to come and lecture at this place, you need to have your master's in art, or you need to do this. And it was like, okay, well, that's not me. But my master's is 40 years of doing what I've done. That's 40 years. And yeah, there's a lot to be said for, you know, like Jeff's going off to get his MFA now, you know, and it's great, you know. My path wasn't that way, but my art is that way.
Very clear and directed.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any spiritual background, religion or just spiritual?
My father's side were Christians. My mother didn't really have anything, you know. I think my spiritual journey has always been connected to the work. The work is the spiritual journey, because I can see it. It's a, you know, would I read stuff out of scripture or stuff like that, or from different philosophers and stuff like? Yes, I find all of that stuff interesting, but I don't find it at the top of my list.
What is your direction now? You're working on a couple of projects?
Yeah, I've got one in particular that we're not talking about yet at this point, but we're developing it, and that's what we're gonna try and raise funds, and we're gonna go and try and make it happen.
Who's we?
Myself, and I have two partners, Catherine Hervey and Massimo Bodetti. They're a couple, and they're also artists, and we're on a journey to try and we're going to do something. We're going to do it. We're going to push hard, make it happen.
Is it about, if I may ask, is it about them or someone else?
No, it's about this environment. I'm still working on this environment, you know.
Yeah, this environment, the desert.
Yeah.
Oh,
desert.
that's great.
Yeah, it's desert stuff. That's why I'm still here, you know.
Where would you be if you weren't here?
I don't know. I went to Europe a year ago. I was going to go to Spain and work in Mallorca. You know, there was a friend of mine that lived there. But I went there and I had a beautiful time swimming in the sea every day. But I looked around and there was nothing there. I didn't feel anything. There was nothing that drew me to it. And when I got back to the desert, I could feel there's still stuff here that's...
The corridors and the doors again.
They're all opening up here. You're like, ooh, here it comes.
Yeah, so talk a little bit more about, what were you calling it, vibration?
A frequency, yeah.
Frequency.
So the frequency is something that it enables you to align yourself to something that you can feel is inside of you, that it's manifesting itself. You're not trying to push it too hard. It's just there. And when you become aware of it, if you sort of close your eyes and you go, okay, what is it that's drawing me? It's it. It's it. Don't try I'm not trying to grasp at this or grasp at that. And then once it tells me what it is, which it does, it'll tell me what it is, then I go down that road. And David Lynch was a perfect one that did that as well. He would have ideas. He'd say, an idea would come to him. And you take those ideas out of the sky. He'd use his meditation for that, his transcendental meditation, got him to that place, and you go, I'd write that idea down, So I would start with something. There would be one little drop of something. Someone says to me, do you want to do this about that, about this? You go, yes. And if that thing drops and there's a weight to it, then that's a frequency. And then that's the frequency that I then align myself to. I don't try and align myself. It aligns itself. It's like, you're going on this trip, Gordon. Forget about it, You don't have any say in the matter. You're doing it. So then I start doing it. That's how it works,
And what else? Is there another project you're working on?
No, I'm just going to concentrate on that one for now. But there's other stuff, like there's stuff in Europe where people want me to have shows, they want me to have exhibitions. There's some museum interest in the video that you saw, People have seen that, and they very, it's very concise body of work now,
Now, the video that I saw,
yes,
that's different than the one of Dave.
Yes, the one of David's own film.
Okay.
That's its own film. The video I sent you is about my art and about me as an artist, And that, I put that out there because it helps people get a clearer idea of what the work is and why the work is a certain way. Instead of them being like, well, I'm conflicted about that image because it's like the picture of Leon, or some of the gang stuff. It's like, it's hard to look at, but it's hard to look away from because the way it was created was so real. There was nothing contrived. I didn't just find some gang member and go in there for a week and take some pictures. Or I didn't just find Leon and line him up and take a couple of pictures over a week. These were 3 to 4 years to 13 years to 4 years to 2 years. All those time frames. It's my life engaged in that. So while I'm engaged in that time frame, things will change. They will move. And the images will tell that story. And that's how the work works for me,
Did you ever find it emotionally difficult, particularly in the gangs?
Oh, yeah. Very. It was hard because, you go to a funeral every 3 weeks. And some of the people that you loved, like Hilton was one. There was lots of guys that I photographed. And even now, Ernie, he was killed like 2 years ago. He was shot. And you saw that in the video at the end, Quintino, we don't know where he is. I'm not sure if he's alive, Turner died in October of TB from the prison. Tuberculosis was a big thing in the prisons. So, you lose a lot of people. But then you also understand that we're all going to move on. We're all moving on all the time. Everything's constantly moving. And that's why the work is really a historical document, a journal, if you will, of what I've created. And I've made it concise enough for people to understand now.
It's interesting. I heard something recently from somebody who teaches spiritual work, and they said once you know your death, once you understand you're dying, then you're free.
Yeah. I think it is that. Because there's certain things connections of that as well that I learned. I mean, Leon was crazy. He was so young and dying, and we knew it. I stepped into it with that, knowing that, He kept saying, I'm going to kick the bucket. Otherwise, someone would we're sitting at someone's home having dinner, And they go, we're going to the store, Leon, do you want something? And he'd say, yeah, look on the top shelf, see if they've got an extra hip. Mine's broken, you know.
Oh, no.
So, but he had a sense of humor to it, you know. And that's where you start expanding into understanding the depth of it. And the gang world was always about life and death because there were shootings every day, there was crazy stuff. So you got to live with it, you know. And then Leon also being the real life and death story. And then when I met Dave out here, he had gangrene, he was dying. He was worried, you know, and he went on that Rife machine and got himself better. And the movie...
What machine?
Rife, R-I-F-E.
And what is that?
It's a frequency that shifts, realigns some of your body stuff, and it doesn't work for everyone, but for Dave, it got him off. He's completely fine. You know, he works 4 days a week, still drywalling, you know. I talk to Dave every day. I've spoken to Dave every day since I moved here. He's my best mate. I absolutely love Dave, you know. And that's because we shared and you can see it in the work. You can look at the work of Dave and you can go, oh, like those people's reaction is not unfamiliar to me when they look at it and they go, oh, you know. And it's that frequency, it's that connection, it's that also being present with somebody and really journeying with them and your art. The two parallel each other together. They go hand in hand as they work towards this kind of beautiful stuff, which is the work. The work doesn't belong to me. I create the work. I don't own the work. The work owns itself. It's all those those are my corridors, and it's my craft set, and it's not me. It's the person as well. It's all of that, and it's what's going on the planet every day that's changing. You know, you go, I was going to do this picture of Dave like this, and then something can happen anywhere in the world, and that frequency shifts, and guess what? The image changes. So it's that. I don't own it. It's created. It's a creation.
So we're coming close to an hour.
Okay.
But I don't want to finish yet. I think we
that's
need
fine.
A little bit more.
Sure. No, it's good. You got me going now, so it's good.
Good. If somebody landed on this planet that doesn't know anything about it,
okay,
how would you describe humanity?
I think that if I look at humanity right now, okay, I see that humanity's been contaminated by a lot of things, specifically the cell phone world and how people interact with each other on social media. I see people addicted to that because they're looking for something in that. I see humans disconnected away from nature because they don't really know what nature is anymore. And it's caused a lot of confusion. And that confusion is baking into the way humans are today. And will it change? I don't know. And that's the thing that I also, from my experience in life, I don't know, and I don't want to try and predict any of that because it's going to be what it's going to be. And when it arrives, there's an Indian saying in South Africa, we double cross that bridge when we get to it, you know. And I use that philosophy, and it's a phenomenal philosophy because it is what it's going to be. You know, we could wake up tomorrow and something completely could have changed. I mean, I remember, when I was making the documentary with the soldiers, you know, there was one day I was like, okay, tomorrow morning we've got to get up with Doug and we're going to go and we're going to film this. I get up, Doug's gone for 3 days, didn't know where he went. And eventually he phones me. I was like, where are you? Oh, I'm in some building. I snorted cocaine. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lost. Can you find me? Can you come in? But so that other thing is out the window. It's gone. It's completely gone. So you only can have what's in front of you. And I think people have gotten so used to the idea of being predictable. So if you ask me, if someone arrived from outer space and they looked at human behavior now, it would be very confusing because it's so divided in terms of nature and reality and the earth. I think a lot of that stuff has been lost. Will it come back? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Will it evolve into something else with AI? Who knows? We just have to go, whatever's in front of us, adapt to that.
What is the greatest gift you've been given in this life for you?
That's a very interesting question. Because I just think life itself is a gift, and everything that came with it, I see that as a major gift. I feel very fortunate that I'm living in this time, and I've been able to do. That's the gift, that I've been able to do what I've been able to do. I think that's the gift.
And if a young person came to you with ideas of being an artist, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that it's their journey. And however they want to go about acquiring that journey and whatever they want to do with it, because each individual artist is so entirely different. I met this woman who does this hand painting at the, there's a little hut where they play music. She's phenomenal. Her name's Kate. You may want to interview her. She's phenomenal. Phenomenal. And she wasn't an artist until like 2 years ago. And her work is phenomenal. And she's just tuned in. But it's the desert as well, and it's the place, and it's everything. And I see that, and that makes me happy. Because I see people, and they at the same level as you. I've done my 40 years or whatever. They tuned in to that same frequency. It's a beautiful thing. And that's why I don't think, for some people, going to school and getting a degree and becoming a master in arts, they can teach people that. And they can have that, and they're happy with that. For other people, it's changing. The whole world is changing in that way. They just adapt and they tune into something. And that's what this lady that I met, Kate, is doing. She just tuned in. And it's phenomenal. It's amazing. And I can feel it, So my advice to other people is just, whatever your journey is going to be, embrace it. It's there. And it's going to be, if you're an artist, it should be hard.
If you're human, it's probably going to be hard.
Yeah, if you're human. Exactly.
If you're human.
Yeah. Everything has an influence of some nature. And there's, you can go to some of the big art fairs, and it's like you look at the work and you go, and it's not being judgmental. It's being observant and going. And you'll hear somebody walk in there, and they'll see the piece, and they'll go, oh my God, that's exactly the green that I wanted in that living room. So it's a decorative choice. And there may be something else within the work that is beyond that, or the artist had different intentions of that. But the way it's absorbed is different, So there's that. I don't judge it, but for my own self, when I see work, I love it when it strikes me.
Wouldn't that be discernment? There's judgment, and then there's discernment.
Correct.
And when you discern, it's for you.
Yes, it is for you.
It's for you.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say to wrap this up?
Yeah, I think that I just feel like I'm grateful that I landed up in the desert. I love the space. There's a community, like I met you, of certain people that I align with, and I like that. But I also like the idea that I have this beautiful space to create. And that's what I want to round it up with. And the continuum of my philosophy and my journey, which is constantly changing, as those corridors, as you go down the corridor and those doors open and close, with what's going on in the world right now, there's war, there's this, there's that. Those things, different things are triggered all the time. And certain things come out. It's almost like if you took paint and you closed your eyes and you took a bunch of tubes and you squeezed them out and you put your hands on them and you opened your eyes and there'd be all these different colors. You wouldn't know which one was which, but they would be there. Does that make sense as a metaphor?
It does, and it's interesting to me because I see things splitting in half almost. And there are people that are embracing those different colors. And the paint spewing, if you lift your hands, paint will come off, it'll go all over. And then there's a group that's trying to keep everything neat and tidy.
Yes.
Tied up in a bow.
Yes.
And the two are having trouble communicating. There
Very
is
much so. Very
no
much.
communication.
No.
Because they're saying the same words sometimes. But that frequency, if it's that or vibration, isn't there.
But you see, the thing about that I find interesting about that is that, again, comes back to when I was telling you about the kid that had never seen the city. Okay?
Right.
It's the same thing.
Perspective.
It's perspective. So people will, and they will hold on to their perspective because that is their identification, going back to identification. They can only identify within the realm of their belief system.
Yes.
And that belief system is what is holding things down for them and for everyone else because it won't move. It's rigid. It's stuck, you know. So you've got that. Or the other thing that you've got as well is that people are so hard to stand up for their belief system, but their belief system in itself is shattered by the guy that I was talking to that was arguing a point about what was going on in South Africa, and he was spewing that information to those people around him, and they were all taking it in because he was famous. You know, oh, well, he must know, you know. And then when I challenged it, but I didn't challenge it to embarrass him, I challenged it because facts are friendly. These are the real facts. And then when you do that, then you kind of, you know, you cause that friction happens. And people don't do well with friction anymore because the human-to-human interaction has gotten lost in these devices.
Well, I'm not sure it's just the devices.
No, but this helps.
Yeah.
It's the gasoline that runs the car. I mean, if you took these away completely and went, okay, no more, people go nuts.
They would go nuts, but there's something magical about the time and the technology.
Of course, but that's back to the positive and negative.
Right.
It's the same. It's in there now, but it's there. We're not calling it negative, but we are seeing it as a cause.
Right. But if we stay aware in ourselves, and that's what I've heard you say through this whole conversation, is that you are grounded in who you are.
Yeah.
And when you do that, then you can hold this little machine, the phone, in your hand and decide, you know what, for the next 2 hours, I'm going to put it away.
Yeah. Unless something triggers me and someone sends me a message and I'm on there and they want me to follow something, then I'm in.
Then you're back in it.
Then I'm in it, you see. And I'm also in it they want me to follow something that's not current, that has happened already. So now I'm living in what has happened already, and the present that is in front of me is now contaminated with that.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So the biggest thing for me is, number one, choices.
Yeah.
And perspective.
Well, perspective more importantly, because choices, I have an issue with choices.
Do you? Why?
I'll tell you why. I'll give you a quick example. So I'm 8 years old. I live in Angola. I just got off a bus and I've been told that I'm going to be a child soldier, and if I don't, they're going to kill my parents. What are your choices?
Oh, wow. Did that really happen to you, or are you?
No, that's what happened there.
Oh, to them, but not to you.
No, but I'm just saying.
Oh my God!
I'm just saying.
Right.
So we take advantage of the idea of thinking that we can always have a choice.
Right.
Sometimes those choices, we can make a decision. I'm going down this road. And of course, it does work for us. We have to demand a choice about certain things. But those things can switch and change. And we've got to be ready for that. That's perspective.
Yes. And do you define yourself by that experience of being a child soldier? If and when you get out of it, does that color the rest of your life? That's where the choice may come in.
Right. But the thing is that you're so hard done by at that point in time that the impact of that trauma at that particular time, being 8 years old, I mean, a child, you're not developed until you're 23. So going through all of that, killing people, doing what you have to do to be a child soldier, and your family are always at stake, what is that? And those are the kids that break into the houses in South Africa that are callous. And they want you to have trauma because they want to pass on what they got as a gift. Okay? So that's why I challenge the word choices. I do make them. We do make them every day. But do they always pan out? If you rather say to yourself, I'd like to have a choice. I'd like to try and work on this, so that you always on the course of working on it, not making the choice and it's locked.
I got you. And I also had a flash that maybe it's about privilege there for me.
Yes.
Because I have the privilege of making choices.
Absolutely, 100%. 100%. You have the choices because of the privilege.
Because of the privilege.
Yeah. And the privilege is also, by the way, has its own sickness to it. You know, it's the same thing.
Right.
We have to look at all of it. And that's why I say that positive and negative and frequency holds all of that. And when you look at it from that bigger picture, like you were saying earlier on, Gordon, if you're an alien landing on the planet, if you look at all of that, the privilege enables a certain amount that you can do, but it disables a lot. It's like if you learn to play a game, say you learn tennis, and you stop playing it and you stop practicing, right? Then that muscle retracts. And you get on the court again, you can't hit a ball. You can hit a ball, but you're not competitive, or you're not, because the practice of it.
Right.
The practice of how do we engage ourselves every day as a human being. The practice is the most important part, and that'll shift as well. You also go, why am I doing this? And then you challenge that.
Well, I can see this going into a whole nother hour of conversation. Yeah. So we'll close now.
Okay, great.
Gordon,
it was lovely. I'm so glad to know you, and I'm pleased that we're here and we were able to have this conversation.
Oh, me too. And I so look forward to your next project and even knowing more about what you have done. We'll
just links. Keep going, and I'll also I'll send you links that people can have a look at.
Great.
Specifically, that video that I sent you now doesn't have a password anymore. We can put it out there. People can watch it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me for part 2 of my conversation with Gordon Clark. In these final moments together, we navigated memory, mortality, and the complex frequencies that shape life. Gordon's journey from the Cape Flats of South Africa to the Mojave Desert reveals how trauma, beauty, and perspective intertwine. His work doesn't just tell stories, it listens to them, lives with them, and honors them as something larger than the self. We discussed identity, illusion, choice, the dangers of single narratives, and the desert as a turning fork for truth. As Gordon says, the work owns itself. What we do, how we bear witness, that's the offering. If this conversation resonated with you, please share it and refer a friend. And keep listening to Driftwood Conversations. This is Hilary Sloan, and I want to thank AHA Projects for their support for this episode and more.